Women in Agriculture and Research and Development Award. I'm delighted to see colleagues from the IPO joining. Welcome, Ziwe. Welcome, Cora. I know that there are others who are joining us and they will catch up with us. I'm delighted to see other colleagues from Award. Very warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining. And of course, our stars of the day, our associates, very, very welcome. Feel very welcome to today's session. So as we know, we've been on a journey the past few days, learning about storytelling, learning about how to create impactful narratives, but learning about how we show up, our brands. Why is it important? What would it look like? What do we want to be known for? How do we show up? And we are at a very critical point of our fellowship engagement, at our fellowship participation, where we are now set to get into the work placements. And so we've been spending some time with you, the associates, working on preparing you to show up better in those places, preparing you to apply your learning as you get into the workplaces. And we know that you've enjoyed the last about 10 days or so. We look forward to hearing from some of you, some representatives would have loved to hear from everybody, but we don't have that much time to hear from everybody. However, we know that in one way or another, we'll get to hear from you as you show up in those places in different ways. And so this afternoon, I'm going to hand over the program to my dear friend, Mwihaki, with whom you have been working this journey. And she's going to help us unveil some of you as you share with us your story, as you share with us your experiences in different ways. My aim is just to welcome you to the session today, to give you a very brief overview of what we've been doing. A lot of us who are here are not strangers to the Young Impact Associates, so I don't have to introduce what it is. We all know each other, the different members of the IPO, we know each other. So without further ado, I would like to invite Mwihaki Muragori, who is going to take us to the next segment of the program and introduce the storytellers as they come on board. Welcome, Mwihaki.
Thank you, Doreen, and a good morning or good afternoon to everybody based on where you're sitting across this globe. I just want to first and foremost say it's been such a pleasure working with these young professionals, hearing their stories, having them get into, hard conversations about what is my personal brand? How am I showing up? What does impact mean? How can I communicate that? It's been a joy, honestly speaking, over the sessions that we've had. We had both lecture sessions, training, and also, very importantly, because this is a fellowship, peer coaching sessions, where they were able to come together, work in pairs, sharpen each other, be able to give feedback. And I think through that process, one of the things that I really just want to highlight is their ability to understand that the knowledge that they have to help raise others up. And as they go into their placements, as they go into these new spaces, I think that that's a critical takeaway that they're going to have to be able to be working with, that they have something to offer others, and they are able to bring their own personal story into the journey of why the work that they do is so important. So what did we do with them? We talked about a couple of things. First and foremost, what is their personal narrative? How can they use that as a way of influencing others onto a journey of change that they're making? Because after all, these are young impact associates. What they're trying to do is make sure that they're marrying the work of, their training and their theory and their academics with the experiences that they have in terms of where they've come from, their communities, and their different life spheres. What they've been able to do also as they're traveling together is validate each other, as I've said, and grow collectively. And the other thing that they were able to question is, and this was a very interesting session that we had, was what is my personal brand? And understand that a personal brand is what is the unique thing that they bring into a workplace, into a community, into any collective that is uniquely and specifically them. And I think that as you hear from the stories that will be shared today, That special sauce, which brought them into this particular fellowship, is what they are offering into the world of change. And I think that that is honestly how we are going to change the narrative in Africa. So what are we going to do today? We're going to listen to stories. Okay. With that, I want to invite our first individual to share. Susan Osei is from Ghana. She's a Young Impact Associate there, and she will be offering her story in terms of reflecting on this journey so far. Suzanne, over to you.
Okay, good morning and thank you all once again. So I quickly want to take you to where it all began. I grew up in Ghana, watching some of our natural resources disappear, not slowly but visibly, in a way that stays with you. Some of our water bodies were being choked and then discolored beyond use, and then our forest landscapes were thinning out by each season. Now, one thing I realized was that through it all, there was a pattern that kept repeating itself. The decisions were being made about these communities without the input of these communities. We would have experts arrive, they will design a solution, implement it, and then leave. And then the problems will still persist, even sometimes becoming worse than before. I was young at that point, but then I understood something that how we're treating the environment was wrong, and then how we're treating the people living in it too. There was a problem with that. So from that, I didn't want to just study or understand the environment. I also wanted to understand how to protect it in a way that actually worked. And then I became convinced earlier on that it will only work if the people that are close to the problem were at the center of the solution that we're proposing. And so fast forward, this conviction took me into academia. So currently I'm pursuing an MPhil in sustainability science, and this is a field that sits right at the intersection of ecology, society, and then policy. It gave me the language and the tools to interrogate not what just is happening to our natural resources, but then why, and then also the kind of interventions that will lead to a lasting change, which is what we want to see. It also deepened my belief that Africans' environmental challenges need African-led thinking, not solutions that have been borrowed from elsewhere and then adapted awkwardly to our context, but then interventions that are designed from the ground up with the communities involved and with the knowledge and then the lived experience of these communities. Now came this fellowship. I came into this Young Impact Associates program already committed to this work. But what this space has given me is something that I didn't fully anticipate. It has given me a sharper set of tools with a deeper sense of how change actually happens on the ground. Learning about some of these inclusive and then participatory approaches to data collection has challenged me to think about those whose voices are present in the evidence that we gather, and then whose voices are systematically missing. Some of the models like on monitoring, evaluation, and learning, it gave me the frameworks to not just ask whether an intervention worked, but for whom did it work and then why. And then the sessions on the gender transformative programming also reminded me that sustainability cannot and is never neutral, but it must actively address the inequalities that make some people more vulnerable to environmental challenges than others. We also learned some of the differences between leadership and then management, and we explored emotional intelligence, negotiation, communication, all these things. But then the session that stayed with me was the longest was the one where we had to turn the lens on ourselves, some of the personality assessments that we did. So from that, I learned things about how I lead, how I listen, and how I sometimes get in my own way. And the focus on communication as well also pushed me to think about how to tell these stories in ways that move people to act. And all these things feed directly into what I'm trying to do. It's not theoretical for me in any way. Every skill that I've built here is a tool that I intend to use. So here is where I am today. Africa is at a critical moment. The decisions being made right now about our natural resources will determine what our next generation will inherit. And for too long, these decisions have been shaped by external frameworks that do not fully account for our realities, our knowledge, or our needs. And I believe that we are the generation that can do that, all of us in this room, not with any grand gestures, but with a kind of deliberate, grounded, community-centered work that actually sticks. So what this fellowship has confirmed for me is that The solutions exist within us. You and I here in this community of sharp, passionate, Africa-oriented professionals who do not just understand what the problems are, but then we feel them as well because there are problems too. So I am a sustainability scientist. I'm an African, and I believe that we here are the generation of African-led impact evaluators and researchers. Now we've gotten the tools, they're in our hands now. Let's go out there and use them. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. I don't know about you, but are you excited about the future of Africa? I am.
am.
If that is what the future looks like, it's looking good. Saying that, you know what, this book learning is good, but it is insufficient if we do not contextualize it. Thank you for kicking us off, Suzanne. So we're going to travel all the way from West Africa to come to Kenya, where we're going to hear from our next young impact associate, who's Modoni Esther Adhinya. She's going to tell us again, what this fellowship has meant to her so far. Over to you, Modoni.
Thank you, Muihaki, for the beautiful introduction. And Suzanne, your story was very beautiful because if we don't protect the environment, then it will not protect us. So, according to the Kenyan Nobel Peace Prize winner, Professor Wangari Maathai, policies are only effective when they reflect the realities and voices of the people they are meant to serve. So, growing up in a smallholder farming family, agriculture was more than a source of income for us, and it was the foundation of our survival. So my parents relied on agriculture to pay my school fees and provide our basic needs. And as a child, farming represented stability and hope. But over the years, I've witnessed climate change slowly take that stability away. Rainfall patterns have become unpredictable and droughts have become more frequent, and farming, which once sustained families like mine, has become more difficult. I now watch hardworking families struggle with food insecurity and poverty. So, from my experience, I understand the connection between climate change, livelihoods, and social justice. And I realized that the climate crisis is not only an environmental and developmental issue, but it is also a humanitarian issue that affects the dignity and survival of African communities like mine that contribute the least to global emissions. This motivated me to pursue a degree in anthropology, where my interest in understanding how climate change affects vulnerable communities and why many grassroots voices remain excluded from environmental decision making was born. I later got to work at a Pan African climate advocacy civil society organization, and in my work, I noticed a major gap between policy discussions and the lived realities of local communities. So, too often, climate policies are created from the top and expected to trickle down to the people most affected. Yet, these communities already possess the knowledge on resilience and solutions that are essential for sustainable change. So, this reinforced my belief that climate action must be inclusive, community driven, and rooted in justice. The belief inspired me to found an initiative called Hifadhi Yetu, which is a community based ecosystem restoration initiative. And since 2023, we've managed to propagate over 1,000 indigenous trees while mobilizing young people and farmers to participate in the restoration efforts. So through this work, I've been able to see the power of local action in restoring the ecosystems and protecting the environment. So today, my story reflects the reality of millions of Africans facing climate change despite contributing very little to it. Smallholder farmers and vulnerable communities continue to experience food insecurities and displacement, while often remaining excluded from spaces where critical climate negotiations and decisions are made. So that is why today, from the fellowship, the Young Impact Associates Fellowship, I am confident that I will make a great policymaker from the training received, and I'll ensure that climate policies are inclusive and built from bottom up rather than trickling down from global spaces to local communities. Since climate justice requires listening to people on the front lines, not only treating them as beneficiaries. but also recognizing them as leaders and partners in shaping sustainable futures. One of my biggest takeaways from this fellowship is the importance of inclusive and people centered measurement, which is done not just to report to donors, but for real impact. And finally, I appreciate the training on communication and storytelling, which you can see I'm not a good storyteller. So everyone has a different story, and each story carries a perspective that needs to be heard. And when communication and storytelling is well done, it can make great change, just like Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, which made great change. Thank you, and over to you, Muihaki.
Thank you so much, Modoni. And thank you for sharing what you've been able to take away, what you've done, why you're here. I hope that the, different partners are getting to see that we really have the right impact associates, right? This is the future that Africa needs. This is the future that Africa is stepping into. One of the things that Modoni talked about was the importance of inclusivity, right? And not as an abstract measure, but as something that is real and felt. And for that, I would like to go over to our next storyteller, who is Hudson Wabuya from Uganda. He's a young impact associate, and he has a very unique view on what inclusivity means. Hudson, over to you.
Hudson, unmute your microphone. Unmute.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity granted. My name is Xavier Hudson, and before I tell you where I'm going, I need to take you somewhere. Most people never introduce themselves when they come in the professional room. I need to take you home, not a home of credentials, not a home of fellowships, not a home of titles, but the real home. I grew up in a deep rural village in central Uganda, a place where polygamy was not a scandal. It was simply how the families were structured. A place where your children were many, yet food was scarce. Where I watched the children of my age, very bright, curious, and full of life, yet their bodies told a different story. Their, their berries were actually soaring from Kwashako, and their rims were thinned by marasmus. Children who deserved the breakfast, but instead were meant by a quite violence of hunger. And actually, in this place, there was only one primary school. And in most cases, when in nature called, the bush answered. Because there was no toilet, no pit latrine, and actually those without homestead, they found home in the bush. So that was the beginning. That was my home. And I say it not out of pity. I say it because it was on the ground. That ground that overlooked stood one of the most fertile soils in Uganda. The soil which could have fed families for generations. The soil very rich in fertility, but the people on it were told that they are poor. And this is what troubled me most, that even before I had the language to name it, no government spreadsheet captured what was on the ground in this village. So in that same village, actually, is where I will bring the testimony that I was born. I was born hard of hearing in the community that did not have any language for what I was experiencing. Actually, the world was designed entirely without me. So I learned, but it helped me that I learned very early to navigate this world. And so it actually shaped what came after in my next life. So I learned the meaning of silence. Yeah, and in doing so, I also discovered that silence is not emptiness. Actually, it's a story waiting for someone with courage to actually change, to carry it. And I decided that with clarity, that I have to be the one to carry this change. And so, in it, I actually entered the leadership space, actually, not because the doors were open for me, but because I had seen what happens when those people who looked like me, who came from places like mine, actually were absent from the rooms where decisions were made. So through a competitive process, I served as a guild minister for disability affairs at Shambogo University in Uganda, where I met one of my mentors who actually inspired me from Uganda Federation of Hard of Hearing because had the same disability, had the same hearing impairment, and told me that I have to leave the world aside. I have to come up and be courageous. And actually, I fight on my own. That alone pushed me, and actually, I navigated the National Youth Parliament of Uganda, where I participated in drafting, debating, and submitting position papers because I believed that these policies had to be changed to include the marginalized. So, in the same process, from the encouragement he gave me, the mentorship, I also applied in some places, some spaces, and in them, I was actually appointed the Intercontinental Youth Ambassador, and in it also, I was actually joined the Young Impact Associates Fellowship. This one where I am now. Not because I did not wait for an invitation to come, but I showed up. I showed up at a gate with my documents in the hand because I believed there's something which needs to change. So I want to ask you something. I want you to observe this, that it might not be comfortable. Think about the last project which you worked on, the last data you collected, the last community you visited, the last report you submitted. Was I in it? Was a deaf woman anywhere in it? Who has opinions, who has dreams, who has solutions, but was under the form she could not fully access? Was she counted? Because if she was not, I need to tell you something with love. I need to tell it with love, with the passion that your data is not data. It is a comfortable average protecting a system that was never decided to see her. So then in 2023, I moved to Eastern Uganda, where my clan is. Actually, I found the kind of a community, the same which I navigated from where I grew from. And I understood it because I had a specific weight from the invisible system I navigated in the central region. So I arrived in that place, not with assumptions, had my team, which I went with, and this team, together with it, we launched an inclusive agribusiness project in Eastern Uganda. We arrived with listening. We did not add disability as a footnote, but we counted it as a foundation. We made it the entire foundation. We trained the persons with the disabilities. We trained the youths. We trained the women who were feeding entire families with no income of their own, no market access, no seat at any cooperative, and they were invisible in every value chain. So we introduced the climate smart farming. We deployed the disability inclusive engagement tools, making every session, every training, every piece of information reached to the person who was always left behind. So in this, we also trained the women in the mobile money access such that they own their incomes. And at the end, this is what surprises that 70% of the participants in the training reported empowerment outcomes and reported improved standards of living. And it was not despite inclusion, but it was because of inclusion. So women who had never appeared on any single government database were now sitting at the cooperative tables, not as guests, but as beneficiaries. But not as beneficiaries, but as members. Mothers who actually never actually were in poverty, they can now earn something. So today I sit here in this room as a Young Impact Associate. One of the spaces I navigated, which has mastered the art of disability inclusion, which I've never found in any space. So I sit here and I carry everything into this room. The village I navigated, the hunger which we suffered, the hearing impairment I have, the 70% empowerment outcomes. Actually, the women who are finally seated at the table, I carry all of them because it's not a baggage, it's my qualification. And in my country, Uganda, yes, Uganda has policies. Uganda has good policies. Actually, it has frameworks, strategies, and commitments. And yes, the country is progressing. But the question that keeps me awake, the question I carry and I need to live in this room today is not whether the country is progressing. It's not whether Kenya is progressing. It's not whether Africa is progressing. The real question is whether this progress is inclusive, especially to persons with disabilities, especially to the women, especially to the youths, to the youths who are left behind. So today I come here, I'm fully present, I'm fully accountable, and I'm not closing the door behind me as I navigate the next journey as a Young Impact Associate. Thank you so much.
You know, listening to the people who are experiencing what they're talking about is the most powerful mover for us to understand what life is. Hudson has challenged us. We should not live in the arena of a comfortable average, right? Data should not do the dirty work of excluding people from the spaces that they're actually living in. As he said, this is not a footnote. Inclusivity is a foundation. I hope that we all take that powerful, powerful message. And as we think about it, as we lock people out because of various ideals or ideas that we have, how many Hudsons are we missing? As he said, all those women who are working in those agricultural spaces who might be facing one disability or another, why would we want to cut out such powerful people who can influence the systems that we're working in? I hope that you've enjoyed the first half of our storytelling session. We'll take a short interlude at this point to learn more about the whole program, and then we'll be back.
I am super excited to be here for a very, very different program for us at the World, working with the young people for the Young Impact Associates Fellowship. And we are happy to be here to officially launch the commencement of the fellowship.
This program is very special to us because we get to work with young women and men. And we get to work with you on this career journey, as Doreen said. So I really want to welcome you here. It's a 1-year, non-residential, but immersive leadership and capacity strengthening program. And it's going to focus on, as you know, leadership, which you're doing, monitoring, evaluation, and learning, impact measurement, and how evidence can be used to inform policy. We know that you're all representing Kenya, Uganda, and Ghana. And we also recognize you're coming with very different disciplines, expertise, experiences.
So I think my first insight into what you should do is that as you get where you'll be blessed, make sure you identify the right mentors. And remember that for you to succeed, you must understand the system.
So now what motivated me to apply for this? Looking at this, I saw that I needed to build my capacity in this. And I saw the opportunity. It was a mentor that sent me the opportunity. And I said, okay, he thinks I can do this. He sees my potential. He thinks when I build my capacity, I can become a leader in this field. Whichever. We are all going to, that's the community that we are building. We are going to learn from each other. And so that is something that excites me about this fellowship.
Africa does not suffer because of lack of interventions, but it's because these interventions are not inclusive. That is why this fellowship is equipping us with the knowledge. Success at the end of this fellowship is going to be a transformation. There are going to be people who use evidence to measure impact and also appear as champions at the end of the fellowship. We shall have the necessary knowledge to implement, not by guessing, but by evidence. Through monitoring, we shall monitor and also become the architects of transformation in Africa.
So that's what I'm looking at. So the trainers that we have, how best can I be aware of myself so that I can impact agri-food system in the possible way I can. That is one. Two, I have to be a leader that is having emotional intelligence. I need to know that I've been put there for a purpose, yeah, and I have to contribute. I have to lead. I'm a servant to the people. So that's what I'm really looking at benefiting from this fellowship, so that I look at how best I can drive people to a specific future.
My mission is to inspire other youths in climate smart agriculture, because I have realized that many people think like agriculture is the last option we should take. So with that, I want to inspire the next generation to see agriculture as the first option, rather than seeing it as the last option, because we have a great mindset, we have a great energy within our communities who are able to transform these communities.
For that, I learned how to communicate this data and strengthen our livelihoods. The target audience is the farmer. How can they improve their livelihood? So this communication will measure the impact in that they will be able to take these varieties, and also they will be able to improve their livelihood and also reduce the kind of input they have to put in their farm. So the overall thing is to enhance food security and also their livelihoods.
It's a call for investment in young people, and working with young people is not a risk. Young people in development work is not about taking a gamble on us. If we invest in young people today and give us a chance, then it means that we will be creating a system that would work for everyone tomorrow.
Mine is to say that because we have them and we have the solution, we can see the problems. What we need to do is, especially when we are asking for innovation and creativity, we need to defend. After listening, let's defend. We need to allow that creativity, because it can come in any form, something that you've never seen. So the key message, the underlying message, in our institution, let us give. After listening and implementing, let us defend.
For me, the greatest change to achieve the impact we want to see is listen and have them be part of our programs as valued partners, not as participants, but going beyond participation and engagement to actually be the leaders of the design of changes they want to see.
This fellowship is an invitation to you to grow, to lead, and to see yourselves as part of the new generation that's going to shape the future of Africa.
Thank you for sharing that. So you see where we started. Those were the hopes and dreams of our young impact associates as they were taking off onto this journey. We're now at a midpoint where they have been infused with certain lessons and opportunities, and we're continuing to hear what that has meant for them. As we continue to hear that, I'd like to now invite Bilkis Frimpong from Ghana. She's a young impact associate who would like to share what this has meant for her. Over to you, Bilkis.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I truly feel honored to be given the opportunity to share my story with you all today. I am a food scientist, deeply passionate about food system, from how food is cultivated to how it affects our well-being and sustainability as people and communities. My passion for food did not begin in a classroom. It began at home. Growing up in a disciplined home, my siblings and I were always required to eat salad before our main meals. Can you imagine telling us to eat spinach before our rice and chicken stew? As a curious child, I constantly questioned why we had to follow this routine, and the response was always simple. It is good for your health. It makes you strong. At the time, I did not understand it, but those moments planted curiosity in me.
I began asking deeper questions about food and its relationship with us. I became interested in understanding why food had such an important role in our lives beyond simply satisfying hunger. I started reading about food. My passion grew for food books, and I developed a strong interest in science, especially topics related to nutrition and health. Initially, I dreamed of studying medicine because I thought I needed people to be healthier through that route, through that study, through that field, by medicine, to be precise. But then I didn't get a chance to, and I eventually found myself pursuing food, science, and technology. BSc in that. Through the study and maturity, I became more aware of the increasing rise of chronic diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, and malnutrition. And I realized that many of these issues are deeply connected to our food system. Not only what we eat, but how food is cultivated, processed, preserved, and made accessible to us. I came to understand that I got to pursue a study that was not limited. I got to a conclusion that a broader field that exposes and informs me about the larger food system from farm to fork, allowing me to contribute fully to the full value chain, not only through medicine or diet. A field that has always resonated with me since my childhood. Along the way, I encountered a serious accident that really impacted my life. A challenge that could have limited and stopped me from pursuing my dreams and passion. But instead of stepping back, I chose to keep moving. I continued applying for opportunity in my field, in my passion. I started learning more. I pushed harder, and I started pushing even more harder as the time went on. I had an accident in 2024, and from 2024 to 2025, I was still applying. I was still putting in the application for any opportunity in my field that I'm passionate about. That is food system, about food, the whole agri-food system from farm to fork. Irrespective of the incidents, despite the circumstances, I still persevered. I was resilient. I persevered. I worked hard to still pursue my dreams and passion. In the face of adversity, desperation, prayers, and efforts, I was blessed and privileged to be selected among the cohort of young impact associates to drive change in the agri-food sector. And then I ask myself every day, what if I didn't push harder? What if I gave up? Would I be here today? Would I be here today being given the platform to create impact in our food system in a time where Africa and the world needs stronger, more resilient, more nutrition sensitive, and inclusive food system? Now, as a young impact associate, I see myself as part of this larger responsibility. And I have learned that life does not always have to go according to your plan. Yet, every experience has a special purpose. We sometimes desire something, we plant something, and we get something else. But accepting what comes our way and embracing it with gratitude works wonders. Wherever life places you, show up fully, contribute meaningfully. Yeah. And standing here today as a young impact associate is a reminder to us that redirection is not failure and our setbacks do not define us. Sometimes the very experiences that try to challenge us become the experiences that reinforces our strength, our compassion, and our purpose. This path that we never planned for ourselves become the path that prepare us for who we are meant to become, for who we've always meant to become. When you accept where you are, who you are, and the way things are happening around you, the world recognizes you. So don't relent. Do not relent. Persevere. Continue. Be resilient. And don't make any challenge stop you from pursuing your passion and goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Bilkis. Isn't that so important? As we think about young people and they think about their careers and the careers that we tend to privilege, right? Bilkis has shared her redirection story where she talked about wanting to go into medicine and actually realizing that, you know what, she can even preempt the people who are needed in medicine by dealing with the challenges of our food systems. Beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you, Bilkis, for reminding us that we all are powerful and our path is our path. We are meant to be where we are meant to be. We're going to travel again from Ghana all the way to East Africa and come to Kenya, where we're going to hear from another Young Impact Associate, Charity Mweni. Mweni, over to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Growing up in Kitui County, in a village called Mwingi, I have learned that challenges are not limitations. Our backgrounds are not meant to define how our future should look like. Mwingi is a village whereby water and food are not always available. Water was a major challenge growing up because we mostly relied on seasonal rivers, and most of these seasonal rivers in our village would dry up a few days after the rainy season. There was one major river which was 7 kilometers from our homestead, and 50 households from this village and neighboring villages would depend on this one river. The safety of the water from this river was not even a challenge. But now imagine having to sit down at the riverbed for 5 hours, waiting for your opportunity to fetch water, and going home with 4 20-liter jerrycans of water, going to a household of 10 members, and you have to manage these up to the next day. I thought that going to the high school was going to make my life better, and this time came. I went to a secondary school in the same county, but now a different location. And what I realized is that whatever was going on in our village was the same situation in this new village. The water challenges were still the same in this new school, in this new location. Even in our school, we didn't have enough water. The little water that was available was used mainly for our meals, and we would be released every day in the afternoon to a nearby river to fetch water for our personal use. Our teachers kept on telling us if we wanted to see a change in our community and our county at large, then it had to be through education. And at that point, I knew that it had to be through education, that we are going to get that change that we wanted to see and sit in different platforms and advocate for the needs of our county. I really worked hard. At that point, I didn't imagine myself in the future relying on a donkey and going to a river to fetch water. And therefore, I worked hard, emerged among the best students in our final exams. I then proceeded to the university, kept the same mentality that I needed to see something done in our county. I also worked hard. Every skill that I would get from my statistics course, I would try and redirect it in a way that I can use it in future to change the situation of our village and our county at large. 4 years down the line, I was the best student in the Laikipia University's 10th graduation. And apart from the many awards that I got from the Vice Chancellor, I got an opportunity to interact with various guests who had visited the university. And I also had an opportunity to sit with the various council members of the university. From these interactions, I got networks that later on placed me in platforms to advocate for the needs of our community. A few months later, together with a few other youths from our village, we wrote a proposal. And from this proposal, we got 1 borehole. We are not yet there. Our target was 5 boreholes, but this 1 borehole is a great step for our community. We all have different skills that we have gained from this fellowship, and many are to come from the placements that we are about to go. And therefore, my call is to the associates, if we all pick one challenge, it might not be water because we all have different backgrounds. If we choose one challenge and concentrate on making an innovation in our village levels, then 5 years from today, our communities will be different. And we will look back and realize that what once felt like a limitation was actually an opportunity for us to become stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Charity. We can all bloom. We all have different expectations, experiences, and dreams in this world. But if we enter them with purpose, as we have been told, we can change the world. We will even be put in unimaginable spaces where we can influence those who we thought we would never be able to sit at the same table as and make that change that we want to make. Thank you, Charity, for sharing your story. And now I would like us to move on to our next storyteller. We shall remain in Kenya. Moses Abuko has a challenge for us based on the things that he has experienced in his life to date. Moses, over to you. Moses, you're still on mute? Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. So, where people believe in one another, potential becomes purpose. I grew up in a small village in Western Kenya, in a community of smallholder farmers where money was scarce, but people cared for one another. Life was difficult, yes, there was always a shared understanding that no one should struggle alone if others could help. When I joined my local boarding school, reality hit hard. School fees was expensive, and in my first year, I was sent home more than 4 times because my family could not raise the money. Each trip back home felt heavier than the last. I watched my classmates continue learning while I worried whether my education would end before it had truly begun. One day, tired and desperate, I found myself standing in the school accountant's office, pleading for one more chance. I still remember the silence in that room and then the compassion that followed. He didn't have to bend the rules, but he did. He listened, he believed me. Together, we made an arrangement. He waived part of the fees and allowed my parents to clear the balance later, on a condition that I maintain exemplary performance in class. That single act of understanding changed the course of my life, and I went on to perform well in my KCSE exams. But the story did not end there. When I joined university, another mountain stood before me. Even raising the onboarding fees seemed impossible. I hustled, I searched and hoped, but nothing worked. Then again, people stepped in. My local church saw possibility in me, and together with help support, I was finally able to continue my studies. Beyond that, many people in the community contributed toward my academic journey. Some gave money, others gave advice, prayers, or simply words of encouragement. When I was close to giving up, the same spirit followed me into my professional life. I've been fortunate to work with leaders who did more than supervise me. They saw potential in me before I fully saw it in myself. They challenged me, guided, and opened doors for growth. One of my supervisors, whom I hold dearly and worked with part-time, saw the call for application and encouraged me to apply for the Young Impact program. I almost doubted myself, but insisted. That encouragement became an opportunity, and that opportunity became part of my journey. Today, I work as a monitoring and evaluation profession, and I'm also an impact measurement fellow, using evidence and learning to support programs that improve lives and strengthen communities. But beyond that title, I carry with me the responsibility to extend the same kindness, opportunity, and belief others once extended to me. Because when people believe in one another, lives change. A young person discovers purpose, potential becomes possibility, and possibilities become service to others. Let us be the neighbors who pay attention, the mentors who stay present, the leaders who open doors, the voices that remind someone, I believe in you, just as Impact Partner Organization has believed in us. Thank you.
Thank you, Moses. As he has said, he is a reflection of people who have opened doors. Right now, we're sitting with all these Young Impact Associates who have benefited from the institution's MasterCard, Award, AFIDEP, Academia 2063. You have all come together to be those mentors and to be those door openers. As Moses has said, the work is not finished. We may be talking about institutions today, but also as individuals. Individuals make a difference. So thank you for all being on this journey where we are all making a difference and we're all being those people who open doors. Our last speaker today comes to us from Uganda. Immaculate Kambambazi is going to give a vote of thanks on behalf of the entire cohort as she shares what this particular journey so far has meant to them. Immaculate, over to you.
And thank you so much, Mihaki, for this opportunity. As associates, we are very excited to conclude the first phase of the 6-month mentorship journey. The transformation is clearly evident from where we started to where we are now. Even in the way we tell our stories, reflect on our experiences, express our leadership journeys. It is evident. Thank you so much. I would like to sincerely appreciate AWARD, the IPOs, and the training facilitators for their dedication, technical guidance, and commitment throughout this process. Your support and continuous capacity strengthening have laid a strong foundation for learning, personal growth, and transformative leadership. And this mentorship has been a powerful journey of growth rich with knowledge exchange, meaningful network, and practical learning. It has not only strengthened our skills, but also reshaped how we think, lead, and influence change within our spaces. It has been an empowering experience that has built our confidence, deepened our commitment, and our perspectives as emerging leaders of tomorrow. Going forward, it is important for all actors to continue building on the progress made and sustaining the momentum created. Strengthening collaboration and peer learning will remain key in promoting shared problem solving, experience exchange, and collective impact. And there is also a need to deepen accountability and intentional follow-up action so that the lessons from this mentorship are fully translated into real and lasting change within our communities and the host organizations that we are going to start working in, starting 1st June. In conclusion, I say that mentorship does not only end with the sessions delivered, its true value is reflected in how we continue to apply, multiply, and live the knowledge gained. As associates, we remain committed to carrying forward these lessons and creating a meaningful and lasting change within our host organizations and communities. Thank you so much.
Wow. I'm very emotional today, listening to all these stories. I wish we were all in the same room and we could hug each other and just celebrate each other. This has been such a wonderful 1 hour well spent, listening to different stories of resilience, of like charity, not just imagining a better future, but working towards that better future. And not just challenging us. Are you going to be a present mentor? Are you going to stay present? Are you going to be that neighbor who pays attention? And Hudson reminding us that disability and inclusion shouldn't just be a footnote. And for those of us who work in the gender space or who are trying to amplify this, for people to pay attention, we're always fighting, gender being picked as a box, disability as a box. How do we ensure that it's actually the foundation of what we do? What happens when you face a curveball, headwinds in life? Yeah. It's reminding us that when you face a setback, it doesn't, define who you are. And when we started, Suzanne was really firmly telling us how we need to and why we need to continue focusing on Africa-led solutions. And Esther, congratulations on the work that you're doing with Parietu, again had some reminding us that silence is not emptiness. This has been such a wonderful afternoon, spent very well. And indeed, we are future ready. For me, that's what I can say. I don't know how you feel. I saw a few more members of the IPO joining us. I saw Blaise from the Y Labs. I saw our Deputy Director, Dr. Michelle Bochwao. For me, we are future ready. And I think what we have ultimately confirmed today, if we were in doubt at all, was that out of the more than 4,000 applicants that we received when we put out the call, we got the absolute best 22. The people who we selected to undertake and to participate in this fellowship were for sure the right people. And without a doubt, you are going places. And we are really, really excited to see what you will do as you get into the next piece of the part of the fellowship. We have absolutely no doubt that you are ready, you are employable, you are a force to reckon with, and we look forward to see what you will do. So we've come to the end of this session of listening to stories. It does not end here. We are for sure going to be following up with everyone of you to continue hearing what you're doing in your places of work. For our colleagues who joined us from the IPO, from award, this has been real. It's been great. Thank you for joining. And I'm handing back to you the 30 minutes. We had scheduled to have this for between 1.5 to 2 hours, but I really like that all the associates were very committed to this journey. And when we told them, stay within this time, they stayed within this time. You were very committed to the training, coming into the coaching. Thank you very much. We cannot end this without thanking Haki Muragori, who has walked this journey with them. Back in those training sessions, in the lectures, the coaching sessions, it's been endless. We've had to do it within a very short time. But I'm very pleased to see the outcome. So please join me in appreciating Mwihaki as well. I want to thank all the award colleagues who worked very hard behind the scenes to organize this and ensure that everything is done. We had Marion working very hard behind the scenes, Tekla following up with all the associates. Thank you very much for your efforts. And everybody else who has really, really ensured that this becomes a success that it has been today. Very, very many thanks to you. And now, I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekends. Have a good one. Bye-bye.